Okay, so I have a covert presentation of schizoid personality disorder. I used to be more overt, more stereotypical, more withdrawn, and not engaging with people, very quiet, keeping to myself. But over time, I learned to act like I'm like everyone else to an extent where I can engage with people, I can seem interested, I can seem more outgoing, and yeah, all that kind of thing. I can talk like this on YouTube as if, everything's fine, even though actually I'm just alone in this house, just talking to a webcam, which is an inanimate object. I'm not actually talking to people, but I can seem like, hey, I'm talking to you, the person on the other end of the camera. And, I guess I seem to come across as friendly, even though I'm not trying. I have people telling me that, like, I'm, easy to be with or whatever. Yeah, so I'm able to seem more social than I am. But there are signs that I'm not very social, and that goes beyond the obvious, like, especially since the pandemic, I've tended to spend a lot more time at home. I've been more of a hermit. But when I do go out or when I am with people, I'm still able to act the way that I did when I was going out and about a lot more. But apart from obvious things like staying home more and all that kind of thing, not engaging with society so much, and other struggles that I have, there are some subtler signs that I'm not really a social person and that I'm not actually talking to people all the time and I'm not really engaged in society. And the main one that I've noticed in the past while, since I got my schizoid diagnosis, is with word pronunciation. Because if I'm not engaging with society and I'm not hearing people talk, then I'm having to read words and try and figure out how they're pronounced. And yeah, I could go and, ask someone or type it into something and hope that the Google thing pronounces it the right way. But yeah, I'm struggling with pronunciation sometimes. I've noticed, like, just these things that keep happening. The other thing is, like, if I'm watching shows from the UK or shows from America, I might pick up those, especially America, I might pick up those pronunciations rather than local Australian pronunciations. And then so I use an American pronunciation and people look at me funny. Especially the kinds of people who are like, oh, that's American, blah blah, because there are some people who get annoyed with the American way of treating the language. I've seen those memes where it's like, how there's traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese. Yeah, they put the American flag and say simplified English, which gives me a bit of a laugh. Anyway, no, so, yeah, since my diagnosis, there have been a few moments where I realized I actually don't know how certain words are pronounced. The one that comes up a lot is mayor. So I think in Australia, the way that we pronounce Mayor is mayor, which sounds weird to me, sounds weird coming out of my mouth. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. But when other people say it, I know what they mean. It feels weird. Whereas when I read it in my head, and also I think I picked up the American pronunciation, mayor. And so I was saying something like, this is not a word that comes up in my life a lot. Like, local politics is the only, like, I don't care about local politics. Where I live is not very interesting. They don't give a shit about me or my needs or what I'm interested in. It's very conservative, very boring. So I have no reason to give a crap about the mayor. Mayor? So yeah, but there was something that came up and I just said something about the mayor, and my dad's like, what are you, American? And yeah, like, that was one of those events where I'm like, ooh. And there's, like, as a one-off, okay, fine, there's some things in American that are easier to say, like schedule instead of schedule. It just feels better in your mouth. Schedule, easy. Schedule? So I think sometimes I flip between them because I'm never really sure what to say, and I don't need to say schedule very much, so that's fine. But another one, the one that's a bit subtler, like, yeah, having American words pop up, American pronunciations pop up, or reading things and pronouncing it the way that they're written or seem to be written, that's understandable, that's normal, that's, fine. But one that came up is I was talking to a friend, a musician friend, and I was talking about a venue. And when I tried to pronounce the name of this venue, she kind of looked at me funny and said it a completely different way. And, I think I still understood what she was saying, but it it was just one of those moments where I'm like, I actually have no idea. I've never heard anyone say the name of this venue. So I think it was the Burdekin, but she might have pronounced, I don't even remember how she pronounced it now. It might have been like Burdekin, or like there was some difference in the way that she was pronouncing it, and she's someone who actually does go to music things, so I'm going to assume that her pronunciation was correct. But yeah, it was just one of these things, like I hardly ever used to go to that place. I've been a few times last year, and I've seen more gigs happening there, like more heavy gigs, so it's a bit more interesting to me now if I did want to go somewhere, and it's in a good location too, because another place I used to go, I don't know if they even do gigs anymore, to be honest. I haven't heard much about them, but yeah, I don't know how the names of places are called, and like Australia has a lot of oddly named places, because a lot of them, especially a lot of them are drawn from Aboriginal words, and so like if I haven't heard how something's pronounced, and then I have to wonder, oh gosh, if I'm going to talk to someone about that, am I going to completely screw it up? Or are they going to even understand what I'm on about? So that's one of the things that I think is a sign that I'm not actually that social or talkative or engaging with people, is I just don't know how words are, unless it's like basic words that you hear all the time. Yeah, and maybe this explains a few events like in my past. So about bit over 10 years ago, I worked at a Kodak Express, and back then I was watching a lot of 24 and Doctor Who, so American and British TV, and I had a few events also where customers thought, like, they asked me where I'm from, and I said, oh, I'm local, and they're like, oh, you sound like you're British, or oh, you sound like you're American. I actually had a few of those moments, and I didn't think, maybe this is not related to pronunciation, maybe I just absorbed these accents, I'm not sure, but because I don't, like, I've never been particularly social. The main time was when I was on antidepressants and going through a lot, I was doing a lot more music. That was my most social time, but the only time I really socialized was for music. Otherwise, like before and after the band stuff, not going out that much. So I guess I wasn't talking to a lot of people, and my relationship with my parents was definitely not as good back then. So because I live at home, and I think, yeah, I was still living here most of that time anyway. I worked there a few years. There was a brief period of time I moved out, but most of the time I've been around here. So the only people I'd be talking to most of the time would be my family. So yeah, if I wasn't talking to them a lot and I was just watching TV, did I accidentally absorb British and American accents temporarily? Or was it just the pronunciation of specific words that made these people think that I was from somewhere other than Australia? I don't know. So I'm not sure if that last one is an asocial thing, or if it's just the way that my brain absorbs stuff, or maybe it's a bit of both. But yeah, I think there are some like little signs here and there that, despite me learning how to seem normal, I'm still actually schizoid and inclined to be asocial and inclined to be a hermit underneath all that. So there are a few signs you can pick out here and there that break through the covert kind of shell or pretense, or it's not really a pretense, like it's quite natural for me to act like that because I've gotten into the habit of it, but yeah, there's just signs that it's not really how I naturally am or was, or something like that. Anyway, that's just a thought for today about yeah, asocial things and being covert schizoid, stuff and things. And I know I ramble, and I'll see you for the next whatever.